Hello everyone, and welcome to another tutorial on designing synths from scratch, also called pad from scratch. Today I'd like to try to make another pad droney kind of sound, but not ambient this time. This time it would be more of a cinematic undertone, because I love cinematic sound design. So we'll be using Massive today, and I'm not quite sure yet what I want to do, so before I get started explaining anything, I'll just try out some things and get back when I find something that I like. Okay, so I think I have the beginning of an idea right now. This is what we have at first, and maybe a quick note on how I got here. I set the kind of like the rules for what the sound is going to be and how it's going to behave first. So on the main envelope, which is our volume envelope because it's set right here for our main volume. Crank up the attack and the release, so we get a soft start and a soft release, obviously. Then I put a slow LFO on the wavetable position on all of my oscillators, and under the global tab, under randomize, selected type select, cranked up the randomization percentage up and just hit random, and listen to the oscillators also with some reverb and delay, and just listen to the oscillators until there was something that caught my attention. But since most of these waveforms in the unprocessed at least can be quite sharp and typically sounding more like a normal synth tone, like a saw or a square, which is in itself not that interesting, I started adding a filter, and I tried going with a combination I don't usually go with, because when I do these randomization things, I try to challenge myself to do things that I haven't done before or I don't do often, because if I don't, then I always utilize the same techniques and then the sounds all end up sounding the same. So my first filter is a band pass and my second filter is a band reject. There's no real reason for... Well, there's a reason. The reason is I wanted, first of all, to get rid of any super lows and any super highs, so it's more like a mellow, mid-tony sound. But then I started thinking, okay, how can I take what filter 1 is doing and make it even more interesting? So I tried a band reject, and this actually sounds quite nice. So this is it with just the band pass. Without. So the band pass is already making it a bit softer, but there's still a honky quality to it of the synth sound. And if I add the second filter, the reject, it kind of takes that away, and it also moves in waves depending on where the wavetables are in their current position, being moved by the LFO. So the cool thing about this, especially with resonance, if we move these around, we can get a lot of different colors, because the second filter is cutting and also emphasizing, because of its resonance, what the first filter is doing. And the first filter right now is just standing still while I'm moving the second one. So that can have cool results. I tried the double notch first, but that one is a bit more aggressive in its resonance characteristics. So it will be very audible spikes, and sweeping it through, you will hear the overtone series as you move through the different emphasized points, which wasn't what I was going for. And just so you know how it sounds like, it's like this. Which is also really nice, just not where I was going for right now. So I'm sticking with the band reject. That in itself is still just a mellow tone, but I decided to stick with this when I found this second layer, which is this M-plex wavetable in its formant shape, and it sounds like this. So that to me already has a kind of, well, a kind of sci-fi sound. Just having this high tone sweep through on top of our mellow tone. It sounds a little bit dangerous. It sounds a little bit, you know, unsure, because it doesn't actually play, well, it does play notes, but it doesn't play any scaled notes. It just sweeps through, forcing itself upon our stable drone node. So yeah, I thought this was cool. This is something I can work with, and we can start enhancing this. The first thing I'd like to do, so I don't have to move this intensity slider by hand, is to put another LFO on it. I don't want the same, because I want this speed to be independent of what our wavetable LFO is doing right now. So I'll just find a nice tempo to go with. And I don't think I want a saw shape. Let's just stick with sine for now. I also don't want it to restart, because then it would play the exact same every time you hit the key. And I just want it to be a color that is there, independent of the notes that you play. Yeah, okay, it's better, but the range is too big. Actually, let me do this. Since I like to apply my presets with macros, just to have more control, we might want to expand this range later on in the patch. So instead of constricting it now, I'll just put a macro on it, activate the sidechain mode, hit this little line, and then it becomes an upright arrow, meaning when this is at 100%, then this will be the maximum modulation range. If this goes down, this goes down. So I can make this bigger and have more control over it with my macro. I don't think I want to modulate the speed of this just yet. So next step. This is good, but I think I can make this even more interesting. So let's try applying our modulation oscillator, and again, just trial and error. Let's see what happens. Done. That was easy. Okay. Added the ring modulator to our second oscillator. That's the one doing the high pitch. And I raised the pitch. So what ring modulation does, it's essentially, you can imagine it as a form of amplitude modulation. So this is called a modulation oscillator because it is technically an oscillator. We just don't hear the sound. And the range of this goes just as far as our normal oscillators go. But depending on what the speed of this is, it will have a different effect on amplitude modulation. If they're the exact same speed, then it will be hard for the modulation oscillator to do anything that falls outside of the normal speed of the first oscillator. If they're in different speeds, then this will do its thing. This might be faster, or might be slower, but they're not connected logically. Like in it's not a fourth or an eighth or anything like that. It's just faster in this case, and that can have interesting results. Which in this case, it already did. What you're hearing here this like extra low note and extra rumble. That is because the modulation in this case is so quick that it itself is making another audible tone, which in this case sounds great. And this might also be something that we want to modulate or move around. Let me try putting an LFO on this. Maybe about 7 semitones. Maybe smaller range. Tiny amounts of modulation is always good. Because then it just means it's an extra layer of change over time. Right, but I do want control over how much of this I want to apply, so I'll put down another macro. What was the second one? This was pitch mod, I don't know. Let me go back to the filters. Maybe now something interesting can happen when we move these around. Just as a note, what I'm doing right here is, I didn't notice before, but both oscillators were going in equal amounts to filter 1 and filter 2. But since I'm doing this mostly in serial, meaning it has to pass through filter 1 first, then come back, and then pass through filter 2 instead of doing both, I actually had to tell it to only go through filter 1 first and then follow the rest of the routing chain, which you can always check here. This is a bit intimidating at first, but it's worth it to learn and to experiment what this actually means, because routing in synthesis is everything. That's what all of modular synthesis is based upon, the fact that you can take any signal and put it anywhere else. On a normal keyboard, the routing is always like on a Moog, which has a great sound, or Moog, sorry, which it does have a great sound, but the structure, the routing will always be the same, and there's no way of you to change it. So that's a drawback of those keyboards, in my opinion. But yes, where was I? The filters, right. Okay, yeah, I know what to do. So, I think the end goal for this patch will be, instead of being a tone that plays constantly, I think what would be cooler for this one is if we make it easy for the user, and the user can be yourself, to actually have it come in and out when you choose. But when it comes in, it's always a little bit different. So that's why I was playing around with this first filter. But also as a note, since it's serial, if this one is down to 0, then meaning it's pretty much closed, then this one won't be able to do anything. It's almost pretty much closed right now. And then I can have it swell in and out with our macro. And since we have reverb and delay and a long release, it will echo the swell even if we close it back down pretty quickly. If not, it will be whoop, and then it's done, which is not what we're going for. See, and now this high tone that we had right in the beginning is, now you don't even hear it as a tone. Now it's just color. So without, it would sound like this. A little bit different, but still quite samey. Cool, so I'll put another macro down for this one so we can choose how much of this color we actually want. And this will be, naming these is always fun. Format volume, why not? Format vol. Yeah, format v, good enough. What else? Do we want to change this? Oh. Yeah, okay. With this you can kind of, so we'll still have our modulation and we can control the modulation amount. But with this second macro, we will be able to kind of choose the color center of it all. So if I don't always want it to start here and go there, maybe I want the high range. Maybe I want it more in the low range. So let me put this one down a bit. And this will be our format color. Format C, whatever. You'll have to. If in doubt, you can always read it here. Okay, do I want to do anything with width and resonance? Yeah, it would be nice to have a little control. But since I'm running out of macros, I'll modulate both filter 1 and filter 2 with the same one. Because I don't think I'll want to have... This one isn't as aggressive, so I don't think I'll want to have independent control of these. That is res. Yeah, and bandwidth can stay the same, because it just makes the bandpass wider, which sounds similar to just opening it, so I'll leave it. Yeah, and now what we can do with our second one, our second filter, is pretty much just play with color. Because again, it will emphasize different parts of the frequency spectrum that our first oscillators already give, our first filter is already giving us. So if this is our bandpass 1, and it has a high resonance, so there's a peak here, and then our second bandpass is trying to move over this already existing shape with its own peak, then there will be parts where just very interesting emphasis of the current sound happens. That will be our post BR, I guess, band reject. Cool, but there's still one thing I wanted to do. What I had in mind this whole time is, so we have our mellow tone, we have our kind of high sparkly color tone, but I still wanted something more ominous, something dangerous in the lower parts. But I was worried that since I'm already making use of both filters, that I wouldn't be able to have control over this one as much as I'd like. There's a bypass feature, which I almost never use. And essentially this means that if you have a look into the routing, there's this little B next to the oscillators and even next to the noise. And this yellow line that completely bypasses our inserts, well, these inserts, our filters, and these post inserts, and goes directly, and even our FX, and goes directly to our EQ and then the master. Which is a way of you for to do exactly that. If you want this oscillator to just be pure and not be affected in any way, you could crank up this bypass. Which now I'm seeing it, I don't really know why this is being modulated by an envelope. Doesn't really sound like it's doing anything. Oh well, you always learn. But I don't think I'll need that, because this in itself, without bypassing, with it going to both filters this time in parallel and not in serial, already sounds pretty good. So I think I'll stick with that. Let me try some different waveforms to see what I like best. Right. Okay, and before we go any further, I think I'll want a movement on this as well. One that goes up, stops, goes up, stops. So an upward saw. So this shape. This is a downward saw. This is an upward saw, which we have here somewhere. Okay, maybe not. So I'll just use the performer instead, because there we definitely have this shape. I want this synced. I want this to be in time with the music. Yeah, it should be half movement, I think. Maybe even a whole bar. Yeah, I think it works. Okay. That could work. Let's remember that. Okay, cool. Now we're in Transformers territory. This I like. What else I'm going to do is I'm going to take this same performer and put it on the volume, the amplifier, to further emphasize this rising motion. So essentially what that does is at the start of the cycle, we will hear this oscillator less because it will be quieter. But as the wavetable position and the volume both rise at the same speed, it will become audible and then go away, and then audible and then go away. Can't really decide between which of these modes I want. I kind of know what they do, but then again, who knows, who cares? All that matters is how it sounds. This might actually be more an idea for a whole patch in itself, just trying to work with this crush mode and the different shaping forms. But for now, I'll just stick with this. We can still change it in the modulation oscillator if we like. Right, but I do want some control over when it actually comes to play. Cool, I'll just name this Rumble. Okay. Not bad, but it's a bit much. I can barely hear this. Don't like that. This doesn't sound the same as it did. I guess I must have hit some kind of sweet spot with this earlier. That does not apply anymore because I've changed a whole bunch of settings. That happens too. Then just let it go. Keep going. I will never find the setting again. So do we then even need the modulation oscillator? I mean, it can do this. It can just make our mellow tone a bit more wobbly. And that's what I'll do. I'll call this wobble. Because why not? Actually, no, there's a few more things I always try when making a patch. First is just adding feedback and see what happens. Yeah, cool, but no thanks. Not that interesting. This you could, if you wanted to. That's kind of cool. Just adding a bit of, well, noise. But not white noise. This is, I think some of these modes are just looped samples that, depending on the color, they get either filtered or they play slower, faster, I'm not quite sure. But it just adds another texture to the layer, to the sound. Can if you'd like. Not necessary, but just for fun. Since I'm all out of macros, I'll just take a velocity controller because right now I'm not doing anything with velocity. So with this, you can control how much of this power noise you'd like to hear. So last step, let's try adding a few more voices. So, okay, that is checked off as well. I think I just want to take some of the low end out. Because it's just a bit much. Right, so I want to find my kind of init settings for the macros. Oh, that's cool too. Kind of a ghostly howl with a full-on resonance. If you do this, can be fun. Cranking up resonance can have really interesting results. But if you do this, be very careful when moving your filters again, because you might get your ears blown out. If like having resonance full on up means there's a gigantic spike in the filter cutoff point, emphasizing, like say our root note is here, and then the fifth is here, and the octave is here, but our filter is kind of positioned here. So if you were to move this with this huge spike, and you pass the root note, then it'll be like a really big spike, and it can sound not pleasant. Very much not pleasant. Cool. Anything else? Nope. I don't think so. I think I'm happy with this. I mean, you can still do tons and tons of tweaking. I haven't even touched the inserts yet, but this is just a getting from point A to point B kind of tutorial. Feel free to copy these settings and, you know, make them your own, because I'm sure you want to. I'm just trying to explain, as usual, how I approach making a sound like this. So yeah, that's my tutorial for the day. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something valuable. Leave a comment. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, what you would like to see. If you still have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. And yeah, that's all for today. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.